Welcome. Welcome to everyone who's joining me today. You don't really need too much equipment today. We're going to be working on from the hands to the heart on shoulder integration and shoulder strengthening. If you have a hard time being on the floor in all fours, you can do one of two things. You can either grab a chair, and a chair might be handy to have around anyway, or a blanket or some kind of extra padding for under your knees. You can, instead of coming to the floor on your knees, you can absolutely just bend over and put your hands on the chair as well. So minimal equipment. We'll get started here. The reason why I'm doing this today, two reasons. One is I've been doing a lot of work on the computer. So using my hands and shoulders, and of course we have what we call tech neck, right? Tech neck isn't really so much about your neck, it's about your shoulder girdle. It's about internal rotation of your arms and the shoulders coming up, and then the head follows that movement. So we can't fix it from the head, we have to fix it from the heart, from what's going on around the ribs. So that, plus I've been doing a ton of gardening, and I'm sure many of you, as the weather gets better, will be doing a bunch of gardening. And gardening has a lot of gripping, a lot of work through the front of the chest, which is fine, awesome. But we want to maintain balance between strength in the front of the chest and strength in the upper back. The rotary cuff for the shoulder, most of those attachments come into the shoulder girdle in the back of the body. So if we lose integration back there, we start to have problems deep in the shoulder, in that rotary cuff, in the area around the top of your upper arm bone. So we need to maintain integrity through the shoulders. The second reason why I'm doing shoulders today is all of this yard work. My hip's having a bit of a flare up, so if you see me kind of struggling a bit with my hip, that's why. So the beginning of the class, I'm going to sit in a chair. Feel free to sit on the floor in any position, and feel free to shift positions with your hips as you would like. And we will get started. I see I've got a few people on. Again, welcome to everyone. Find a comfortable seat for you. And again, if coming to the floor is difficult or impossible, all of this activity today can be done from a chair. We'll be doing some standing activities as well. Let's just start by just getting a little centered. What I'd like you to do is take one hand and just place it on your heart space. And of course the bone here is the sternum, or sometimes we call it the breastbone. And I want you to just put your hand on it and move it around a little bit. So kind of lift the sternum, lift the chest up. Notice what that feels like. Notice the change in position in your spine, particularly around your lower back. Drop it down and feel what that feels like. You can tip it side to side, right? Maybe you can even create some circular movement. I want you to notice how when you're moving your sternum, you're moving your whole midsection of your body. However, you're not necessarily doing much with your shoulders. So what we are trying to really find today is the connection to the heart space from the hands through the arms and shoulders. So right now, where I feel movement is in my mid-back, in my waist. I feel very little happening in my shoulders. So just notice as you're getting this sense of centering. What we want to do is, if this were a bell, and I'm just going to grab a bell here. If this was a bell, and if this is a singing bowl, but if it had a clapper in the center, and I'm moving it around like this, what I'd like to do is find where it's centered. So if you imagine the heart is in the middle of this bowl, where is the heart centered in the bowl of your chest, your upside down bowl here, your bell? And if you notice, that's going to be the sensation of having the sternum vertical. And sometimes, especially if we have some some shoulder weakness in our upper back, it will feel a little slumpy in our posture. Let's go ahead and just center our heart and elongate our head and neck without lifting the chest, and just let your hands rest in your lap. Find the sense of centering in your heart and just accept the position of your shoulders. Maybe it's hard for you to elongate through your neck and lift through the crown of your head. Accept the position that's comfortable for your head. You can keep your hand over your heart as we just take a pause here. Could be many reasons for our shoulders to maybe feel heavy or for our head to be dropped forward. It can absolutely be due to just chronic positioning or the kind of work we do. It can also be a time of reflection. When we go in, we tend to drop our head. We tend to round our shoulders, bringing our hands forward over our heart. It's a way to kind of protect the tenderness here. And particularly if we're burdened, our shoulders will feel heavy. So accept where you are right now. Instead of wishing for a change, change will happen if we first of all know where we are. Otherwise, we're just moving around randomly. So finding where you are, pausing there, breathing there. Notice the breath under your ribs, around your heart space. Notice it on the front. Notice it on the sides. Notice it on the back. Notice it above the heart. Notice it below the heart. As we begin our movement practice today, I'm going to encourage you to keep maybe one hand on your sternum over your heart, just to maintain awareness. What we're going to do is we're going to begin to work from the fingers through the wrists up through the arm, and at first we're going to take our hand off our heart just so that we can use it to move our fingers. Right, but as we get closer to the heart, we'll place that hand back on the heart. We're going to just work through one side of our body so that we can sense the difference that we have changed, maybe in subtle ways, maybe in really amazing ways, once we integrate and find the path through. All right, so again, hand is on the heart. You kind of feel where your shoulders and your heart is, and your head, and you're just going to maintain that. We're going to take our other hand, bring it forward, turn it so that you see the bottom side of your wrist, and try to keep your palm flat for this first time. We're going to work through our fingers, and we're going to work particularly through massaging and just stretching through our fingers. I'm going to come closer to the screen so you can see this. All right, so I call it milking. I'm going to take my other hand and I'm supporting under the joint with my thumb, and my thumb's kind of trying to push up from the finger into the hand while my other four fingers are pulling down. And I'm stretching out through, I'm starting with my pinky finger, and I'm going to turn sideways here. You can see my wrist is extended. Try to keep, again, the bottom of your wrist flat so you're not tipping your thumb up, and your palm is flat. Then I'll move to the ring finger, and again, I'm milking it, pulling it, stretching it. Just do 2 to 3. If you have some arthritis in your fingers, be gentle, but don't skip it. Massage it and get some movement through. Right? I'm just going several times, milking each finger, moving through from pinky to index eventually. You can find your own pace here. again, letting the palm drop down, but try not to bring that thumb up. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the thumb. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my thumb and bring it inside my fingers and make a light fist. My opposite hand is going to hold that kind of underside of the wrist, and we're going to start to circle the palm and move into the wrist. Now there will be a tendency for your forearm to rotate. So holding onto that forearm, keeping it still, move slow here, really pay attention. The wrist is one of the places where we get a lot of constriction. So we have things like carpal tunnel syndrome, right? So we need to move slowly, pay attention here. Notice if your circle is not full. Move slowly through those places. Try to get that circle to be as full as possible. Changing directions. You'll notice when you come to this angle here, there's a great deal of pull through the thenar, the thumb area, into its tendon. And that's a really important place, again, not to overstretch, but to move through as best you can. All right, and then we're going to open the palm wide. Now we're going to come into the forearm. Now we're going to let that wrist and forearm rotate. And you're going to take it as far as you can, one direction. So it's like you're hitchhiking your thumb, and then you're going to turn your thumb down. So really get this idea of hitchhiking your thumb, turning your thumb down. And then hitchhike your thumb, and now take your upper arm, tuck it into your ribs. This is where you might take your other hand back to your heart and center your heart. Now we're going to rotate that thumb. It's hitchhiked, it's turned out. Rotate it as far as you can out to the side, and then rotate it in. So now this movement is coming into the bicep, the upper arm. And that's why I have you tuck your arm in. I don't want the movement coming into the shoulder at all. Just into that upper arm rotation. And again, working as hard as you can through here, getting that rotation. So here when we hitchhiked our thumbs out and we're turning our palms out, it's external rotation. The bicep is rotating out away from the midline of the body. And again, you might notice that you want to turn your heart. Try to stay centered. And when we bring the hand in and the bicep turns in, it's internal rotation. You take maybe one or two more. So just getting used to this sensation. And then we're going to take our hand and we're going to bring it up to our shoulder girdle. And now we're going to move the shoulder girdle. And what we're going to do is we're just going to make as big of circles as we can with our elbow. And you can let your whole shoulder girdle move. So we have the upper arm coming in, the humerus. We have the collarbone that attaches to in the front. And in the back we have the shoulder blade. And the collarbone and the shoulder blade have their own movement. It's integrated, it's all connected, and we're just letting it all move together. This is where you might notice that you start to move your heart or your chest. Try to keep it still. And I want you to work on your shoulder girdle circles. I want you to work as far up and as far back as you do down and forward. Down and forward is easy. This is where we live. Try to take it up and back, and try to do it without moving your ribs. It's challenging. We'll change directions. All right, and then we're going to do something, I kind of call it Shiva arms. Again, hand on the heart, bring your arm out to the side. So we're going to bring the whole shoulder, bring that arm as far forward and across as you can. Notice what happens on your upper back. The shoulder blade moves away from your heart. Again, you might have the tendency to turn, so stay nice and stable. Move it forward as far as you can, right? And then move it back as far as you can. And it doesn't matter how high or low. You can try different angles, what feels okay for your shoulder. And then we're going to add all of those rotations. So we're going to start with our palm rotating. Feel your elbow start to rotate. Notice how my biceps just started to turn towards you. And then I'm going to bring the arm forward. Now I notice, just pause as you bring that arm forward, as you internally rotate it, bring it forward. Notice what happens in your shoulder girdle. And again, notice if you're moving your ribs, try to keep them steady. And then I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to hitchhike my thumb. I'm going to rotate my elbow. Feel my biceps start to move away from me. And then I'm going to take that arm as far back as I can. I'm shaking a little bit, right? So I'm going to just start to move through this kind of fluidly. Scooping forward, scooping back. And again, you can play with this movement, have it be as fluid as you'd like. You can take it up higher, you can take it down lower, right? And again, as I start to be more fluid, you can see it just starts to flow into my chest. I'm going to try to stabilize my chest and let this just come through the shoulders. I'm going to take maybe one or two more of these. You can go whatever direction. There's no requirements here. We're just getting all of that fluid, nice, juicy flow through our arms. As you're done, pause and just bring your hands back to your lap. Heart is centered. Just notice how you feel between the shoulder you just moved and the one you haven't moved yet. And I'm looking at myself in the camera and I can see the vast difference in just where my shoulders are resting. And maybe you can see that either in me or go check it out in a mirror. See if your shoulders look different as well as feel different. Notice how it feels into the neck, into the chest. All right, so we're going to take that same series on the second side. And again, I'm starting with my hand on my chest, making sure my heart is centered in this upside down bowl of my ribs. I'm going to tuck my elbow in, bring my hand forward. I'm going to we're starting with the massage, with the milking of the fingers, but try to keep your wrist flat and your palm forward. So don't let it dump as you milk and massage, starting at the pinky. And depending on what kind of tension you have in your hands, what kind of work you do, most of the work we do, our hands are in this kind of what I call a claw situation. And we don't do very much where the fingers are really stretched. And so if you have a lot of tension in your fingers because of that flexion, when you're doing this, you'll feel this maybe all the way up through your palms and into your whole shoulder even. Okay, so again, just going through. Again, if you have a finger you need to spend a little more time on, milk it a little bit more. I have an old break in this pinky, and I did this massage technique for a long time, just working through that pinky, and I thought that the bones were, like arthritic and just always going to be kind of crooked, and they've straightened out a great deal. Right, so care for the tissues can bring change in the tissues, but only if we take the time. If we ignore it and let things kind of go, entropy has its direction, right? So integration is the opposite of entropy. So taking this time, you can even take your whole hand and just kind of stretch all the fingers. Okay, so here's where we're going to take our thumb, tuck it in, fingers are gently over it. Hold your wrists steady as you take these wrist circles. So this is really moving through the bones of the wrist itself, and we're trying to keep it out of the forearm. It is connected. You'll want to flip your forearm. See if you can really find the isolated movements and maybe the lack of movement in your wrists. And if you notice that, if you have kind of a choppy place where you want to turn your wrist, right, maybe you go a little slower there. Be focused and gentle. We'll take it the other way. All right, and then opening the palm, elbow tucked in, rotating that forearm now. So the two bones of the forearms really rotate really nicely. We have the same situation in our lower leg between the shin bone and the bone that are directly behind that, the tibia and fibula. So the radius and ulna in the forearm rotate really well, but we have a similar structure in our lower leg. And so doing work in our lower leg is important as well. All right, so once we've done some of those rotations, now we're gonna flatten, we're gonna have the thumb hitchhike back. And again, this is where you really wanna make sure your elbow stays stable into your side, your heart stays stable at the center of your chest. Rotate as far as you can in towards the midline of the body and out away. And again, you can kind of use your bicep as a guide. When the bicep turns in, internal rotation. When the bicep turns out, external or outward rotation. I think of it as hitchhiking the thumb. Hitchhike that thumb back. Try not to turn the body. Several more. Work where it's hard. So it's harder for me to get that external rotation. So I'm working there and noticing what's the feeling is in the shoulder when I get that external rotation. And I'm just gonna, my feet are falling asleep. I'm gonna shift position here so you can see. Right, external, not rotating the body, rotating the shoulder. And then we're gonna take the hand onto the shoulder and let's make some circles. Chest is stable. And again, work backwards, work upwards as much as you go forward and down. Where is it hard? Where do you feel like you wanna move your ribs rather than your shoulder? And with your fingers on your shoulder, maybe you can feel the shoulder blade, the collarbones, as they kind of move in concert with the upper arm. We'll change directions. And again, where is it hard? Move slow through there. You can see this one, like I really want to, when I bring it back, I really want to arch my back. And this is where I had a break in this left shoulder in the rotary cuff at the top of my humerus. So this is challenging. Shaking even a little bit. Change directions if you haven't already. Keep going. And then we're going to get into that Shiva arm movement, right? So I'm going to start to bring my thumb in, my forearm rotate, my elbow and bicep rotate, right? And I'm going to bring the arm across. Again, I'm kind of feeling what's happening in my shoulder, noticing I want to tip my body. I'm going to keep my heart still. And then I'm going to reverse it as much as I can. The thumb hitchhikes, the forearm rotates, the elbow and bicep turn, and I reach back as far as I can. Again, notice what happens on your upper back. So, taking it through Shiva arms. And again, you can play with this, right? You can move it up. You can play with it overhead. Right? This is where I want you to just be curious, to feel this how all of these individual joints go together to create this beautiful fluid movement. There's a video going around right now of all the ballerinas all over the world doing this swan dance, and oh my God, their arms are gloriously fluid, just beautiful. Maybe I'll try to remember to share it on this page later. I shared it on my own. So just pause for a second before we go to both arms, doing Shiva arms here. But pause, and again, just once you've done that several times, just notice what your shoulders feel like. Again, maybe you go to a mirror and look and see if your shoulders have leveled out. I'm kind of looking here, and it looks like they have on me as well. Definitely feels better, feels more fluid. So then we just kind of play with Shiva arms with both arms, right? So playing with both arms going out as far as we can, playing with both arms coming back. They might crisscross, right? Maybe you have one arm going up and one arm going back, and this is where it kind of starts to feel like Shiva arms, right? And again, play it with different levels. Just get some nice movement in here. And with both arms, allow your chest and shoulders to move all the way into the heart space. Let the ribs move a little bit. Just feel this integration of what's going on between your hands and how that starts to affect your heart, right? So there's no rules here, right? You're just moving around as much as you can in any way you can, and your arms can mirror one another, or they can move in different directions. Your heart can move, right? All right. Beautiful. Okay. So hopefully that really woke up some energy in this whole region of our thorax down to our heart, to our hands. I see a heart coming up. Thank you. We're going to come up to standing next. And I'm going to be standing behind this chair. It's nice to have, if you have a chair, just to make sure that your hips stay stable, but not necessary. So let's shift positions. I'm going to move the chair forward, and I just have the back of the chair just touching my legs, and I'm going to spend just a moment here getting kind of grounded in my feet. We're going to come into a twist, a standing twist, using this rotation of our arms to really get a feeling of twisting. So again, you don't need a chair here, but it's kind of like, it's your anti-cheating device, right? What we tend to do, because we're not as mobile through our upper thorax as we'd like, we tend to rotate our whole bodies rather than really just working through this space. So we're going to use all the strength of our shoulder girdle, and we're going to try to keep our hips stable. So a couple of ways you can do that. Chair in front of the hips or feet firm on the ground. Doesn't matter. What we're going to do is going to take one arm forward, and we're going to begin to get that external rotation. So again, I'm centering my heart, I'm lengthening up through my neck as much as I can, and I'm going to start to hitchhike my thumb, rotate my forearm, turn my elbow out. I can already feel that starting to come into my shoulder. If you're able to bring your arm to shoulder height and to straighten that elbow, you can see probably my heart starting to turn. I'm working through my arm as much as I can, reaching it forward. And then I'm going to take this second hand, I'm going to do it backwards. So same movement though. Hitchhike the thumb back, turn the bicep behind you, right? And then start to reach. So you're creating a twist. Your heart is turning because you're working from your hands into your heart. Take it as far as you can and take a couple of breaths here. See if you can sense the breath all around your heart, right? Remember, try to keep your heart centered. It would be a tendency to arch the back, to reach farther. Try to keep your sternum vertical, your heart centered. Last nice big breath here, and then we'll bring it down. We're going to shift sides, take it to the second side. So start with your hand, turn the thumb, hitchhike, the forearm rotates, the elbow starts to rotate so your bicep turns out away from you, right? I've got my hand on my heart as I start to reach and stretch as if you've got a platter on your hand and you're serving it all the way through the screen. I'm serving it to you. Right now I can feel my heart start to turn. It's being pulled by that shoulder. And I'm going to take my other hand, turn the palm back, rotate my bicep behind me, reach behind me. Focus on centering my heart, lengthening my neck, not trying to turn my hips. Couple of breaths. All right, and then release. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that same movement, but we're going to slowly start to add a little bit more weight to it, your own body weight, and we'll start with a gentle weight, and then we'll start to go a little bit deeper. So one thing you can do is, if you have your chair and if getting down from the ground is difficult, you can simply bend over and do this in your chair. Now, if you find that when you bend over, you kind of get that sinking heart feeling, your shoulders round, come up to where you can get your sternum to now be horizontal with your either your chair, or again, if you're up a little bit higher, then find that angle of how your spine is, how your head to hips are, and level your sternum. So again, I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to start to turn it under. Now, as soon as I take my hand away, more weight is now going into this front arm. And I'm doing that same work with my arm that's underneath me, right? So I'm taking this hand out, but this hand's not going to turn, but I'm working on turning it. Can you see that my elbow pit starts to rotate? My hand, I'm trying to turn it into that hitchhiking position. You can see that's already starting to lift my chest. So same thing happening here. Now this hand can actually move hitchhiking, elbow, and I'm reaching. And again, try not to roll your body. Turn your heart. Press into your hand on the chair. Get that strong rotation. A couple of breaths here. We'll take it the other direction. Once you've completed that side, hand directly underneath you. It's not going to move on the chair, but it's going to take the weight of your upper body. Act as if you're hitchhiking your thumb. Your shoulder will still move. What can move will. Taking it up, fluid movement from the hand through the arm. And again, you can see how that's starting to move my shoulder. And I'm going to let it move my ribs. Opposite arm, reaching up, twisting, turning, pulling, trying to keep my hips stable. Couple of breaths. And then release. So that's a modified version. We're going to go a little bit deeper. Again, feel free to do it standing, doing it with the light weight. As we come down to the floor, we just get a little bit more heaviness into our arms. So maybe if you did it on the chair, you notice that. Again, the hand on the floor, it's not moving, but I'm trying to do that movement. So I'm taking my hand, trying to hitchhike it, but it's stuck on my sticky mat. The elbow, some of you have been in class and I call this elbow wibble wobble. And you can see that my elbow is rotating. And again, my bicep is moving away from my sternum. As I get that, I'm going to let it start to lift and change my torso here. Twist, rotate, and open. Couple of breaths. Push the floor away, push the ceiling away. Make some strength here. And then release it. We'll change sides. I'm going to just do it facing so you can see. Again, here's my hand on the floor. Here's my elbow rotating, turning out. You can see that start to react into my shoulder girdle. The rotation is coming up into the rotator cuff, starting to affect where it's connected into the space of my shoulder blade and just beneath it, right into the ribs Again, this hand, same thing, getting that external rotation and the twist, and a couple of breaths. All right, so feel free, that's a little more load. How did it feel on your shoulders? Feel free to back it up, repeat any of those. I'm gonna show a couple more options, okay? One is to come into a modified side plank. So hand on the floor, getting that spiraling through. I'm starting to get the twist happening. I'm gonna take this lifted arm side, I'm gonna take that leg and extend it. And now I'm letting my whole body follow this rotation. Couple of breaths and release. Take it to the other side as you feel ready. Hand on the floor, spiraling, rotating, opening up. Maybe you take it to your side plank. A little more load on that arm as you do. Come out. Again, you're finding your rhythm here. You're repeating as you feel right. I'm going to add another level of challenge. This is to do that same activity from a downward facing dog. If it's not right for you, friends, don't do it. Stay with the level that's right for you. So, downward facing dog. Now all the weight's coming into my arms, right? So all the way to my whole torso's jamming down into my arms. So if my shoulders aren't strong enough and ready enough, this won't feel good. But if yours are, this will feel awesome. Again, I start same activity. I start with that lower arm, getting it to spiral, taking it up through the chest, bring my body around, and then down. Take it side to side. There's one more option. It's the same stuff, right? It's just increasing the load. So maybe you come into what's called a fallen triangle. So again, I'm going to come into downward facing dog. I'm going to start my spiral through my arms, right? And then I'm going to take this leg that was my kickstand and I'm going to bring it through and move back out. So that's quite a bit of work from your shoulder. Try not to think from your hips up. Try to think from your hands through. Take whatever version is right for you, side to side, one more time. And then we're going to take some really nice stretches, all right? Yeah, lovely work for the shoulders. All right, so just take your time finishing it out. And I'm just going to come a little closer again. I can see some comments. I will return to the comments and reply to them afterwards. All right, so hopefully you've finished through whatever load level is right for you. Just taking that fluid, that dynamic flow from the hands through to the heart, opening the heart wide, directing the heart where you choose to direct it from a place of strength. This is one of the lessons I teach over and over and over again in all of my yoga classes. We talk of opening the heart, and we absolutely want to open our hearts. But we don't want to make them more vulnerable than they already are. Our hearts are encased in this beautiful rib basket to protect it. We need to use the ribs to strengthen it and to open it from a place of strength so that we balance the vulnerability, right? So really our form is part of our function. Yes, we want to open our hearts, but we don't want to just do it from our lower backs because that creates more vulnerability in ourselves. Rather, we want to learn how to open it through this nice dynamic of strengthening it, right? Of really opening out. So take both arms, really open out, reach back. Feel yourself open in the front of the heart, but strengthen in the back. And then just notice which arm you take on up forward first. And we're going to just give ourselves a hug. So I'm going to reverse that spiral, and I'm going to bring my arm over to the opposite shoulder, reverse the spiral. And now my biceps, my strength in my shoulders are turned inward. I'm going to just walk my hands around as far as I can, and I'm going to give myself a hug. So I'm pushing my hands into my shoulders, stretching them out, lowering them down, and I'm going to open up the back of the heart, strengthen the front of the heart, open up the back of the heart. Take a few breaths. And again, if you kind of lift your elbows, when you take your forward dip, there's a little bit more action happening. Couple of breaths. Notice the hand that's under your top arm, right? So opposite hand. I'm going to slide that hand down to the elbow. I'm going to recenter my heart. I'm going to bring the elbow up to my ear if you can. If you can't, you can come wherever's comfortable. And I'm going to pull my elbow into my ear. So this arm is active. This shoulder is actively pulling, and I'm going to resist it a bit with this arm. So it's like I'm trying to pull back, and I'm going to slowly take a side bend. So this lower elbow side is contracting, is strengthening this side of my heart as this side opens. Take a few breaths. Remember, balance this sense of opening with a sense of strength. And then come back to center. Remember which arm was on top. Let's turn into that external rotation. Hitch like your thumbs. Rotate your biceps away. Pull both arms back. Go ahead and let your heart come forward, come upwards. Open it wide, but do it from a place of strength. Feel your upper back working as you rotate. Take a couple of breaths. Maybe notice if there's a different feeling in the arm you just did a little more stretching with. All right, and then we're going to reverse it. We're going to turn inward, protect the front of our heart. Remember, the opposite arm comes on top. Give yourself as much of a hug as you can. Bring those arms as far around as you can. Again, my hands are pushing into my shoulders, and I'm pushing my shoulders back into my hands. I'm going to round my upper back so the back of the heart is wide open. Try not to just point your elbows down, though. Keep your elbows a little bit up if you're able to. You can tuck your chin. If I tuck my chin right now, you'll be hearing nothing but mumbling, right? So I'm keeping my head up, rounding my back. I'm feeling the strength in the front of my heart and the opening in the back. A few breaths here. All right, bring your heart back to center. Slide your hand from your shoulder to your elbow. Guide that elbow up as far as you can. Remember, I'm pulling with my fingers on my elbow. I'm pulling in the direction of that arm, but I'm also resisting and pulling back with my elbow. So there's strength here. And then my hand that's holding that side, that's going to contract around so this is my right arm, around the right side of my heart as the left side of my heart opens. A few breaths here. Try to get that elbow as close to your ear as possible. Head is soft. Last nice breath. And then release. So we're going to just end with just a little bit of work in the neck. I'm going to shift positions again, just come into a seated position that's comfortable. Again, you can shift to whatever position feels good to you. So we've kind of noticed where our heart is and whether or not we're shifting our heart. And now we've got some really good awareness of our shoulders. And we're going to come into that quote unquote good posture, right? So whatever you're doing with your legs, just make sure that you can center your heart. So your legs might be straight in front of you, cross-legged, wide-legged. Get your sternum vertical. Hold it vertical. And now just work through. We've got all this wonderful awareness of strength around our heart. So don't move your heart. Strengthen it. Take, yes, your arms, turn them back. So your biceps turn at least forward, but maybe out. Now, I'm turning my whole hand out so you can see this, but it can happen without the lower arm. So we're working now from the heart back out. Okay, so heart is stable. I want to strengthen it through my upper arm. And I can, yes, absolutely turn my whole arm so my bicep at least rolls from facing in to facing forward. So that's that part of rotation. And then I'm going to just slide my shoulder blade down. So I worked on this side again. You can see maybe a little difference between the two arms because this side I'm not really doing much with. Heart is stable. Biceps rotate out. Shoulder blades slide down. Again, your arms can move the lower part with the upper part, or they can come into a position that just maintains awareness. So we call this a mudra, right? It's just a position of awareness. I want to hold my heart steady and hold it in strength. So maybe you come into Namaskarasana here, this mudra. Maybe hands rest in the lap, palms up. You can kind of hook your thumbs so that you can maintain that sense of awareness, right? You can hook your thumbs, keep your fingers open. It's kind of a position of receiving. What feels right for you? We're just holding the heart steady. And then we're going to begin to drop the chin to the chest. So I'm just going to turn sideways so you can see here. Shoulders are staying steady, engaged, chin dropping to the chest. So now we're just getting into the space of the neck, right? And because we have all of this nice awareness of our upper shoulders, what I want you to do is focus on feeling the connection, that your head is connected to your heart, right? A few breaths here. Notice how long the back of your neck feels. And we call this ramping. So it's kind of like we're going to go back and up a ramp with our neck, trying to keep this length in the back of the neck as much as you can. So again, the shoulders are engaged. You feel the connection, and you're going to try to bring your head up without having your ribs become displaced. And just notice where you can go with it. Keep as much length so your chin stays a little tucked. This is where we have a little double chin work happening here. A few breaths when you get there. Right, so shoulders engaged, back of the neck is long, crown of the head is maybe up. Maybe you can't quite get all the way without having your chin do one of these. So that's a hyperextension of the neck rather than an extension in strength. So just see where you can go with it. And once you're there, pause and just take a couple of breaths and notice this integration above the heart. Notice if it feels difficult, right? And again, the head connects to this heart space. So if there's some dysfunction around the upper shoulder girdle into the neck, what we want to do is find the root of those muscles and begin to strengthen there. So again, it's those muscles that are around and under your shoulder blades, around and under your collarbones. Those are part of your shoulder girdle, but connecting, anchoring, rooting the muscles of your neck. You can take a little side bend here if you'd like, kind of feel this guy that pops out. This is a sternocleidomastoid, and this is one that connects to the collarbone and up to the back of your jaw. So I'm keeping my shoulders engaged, I'm keeping the back of my neck long, and now I'm taking this little tip. A couple of breaths. Just connecting the dots, right? So rather than thinking about fixing tech neck, you know, it's kind of like trying to fix the top of a tree and the roots are coming loose, right? We need to fix the roots. We need to strengthen the root system, which is your shoulder girdle. And of course, again, there's good reason to work there anyway, because it's around your heart. It's around a vulnerable place in ourselves. And we're designed to have strength all around that space. All right. So as you finish your neck stretches, and you can absolutely just roll your neck, do anything that feels good. If you'd like to come into a reclining position, settling into Shavasana, maybe feeling as you lay back, those shoulders roll out and relax, feel free to. What I'm going to do, I'm going to end the class today with the singing bowls. I'm going to just intone some of the sounds from the singing bowls as you go into your meditation. Feel free to stay longer. I'll stop the tape, or the video, it's not a tape. I'll stop the video at some point after the bowls have intoned. All right, so find where you need to be for your meditation. Maybe it's right to stay in a seated position. Sit back. If you're in a chair, sit back and relax, or lay on your mat and relax on the floor. Be gentle with yourself. Be kind, but find your strength. It lies right at the heart of you.